Yeah, we always seemed to have a dog, along the way. Liked dogs very much. Later in life, just before I was married, and even through into my marriage, my mother raised Siamese cats, and they're probably one of the most cat-like cats there is. And I never cared for them too much. You could never trust them. But dogs, dogs were really different. Dogs, are the best example of unrequited or unfettered love. I mean, they just, they love you no matter what, and they deserve the same thing back, as far as I'm concerned. We had a couple of Basset hounds when our kids were growing up that were really neat, and they were real good dogs. And we had a succession of mutts. We never much went for the thoroughbred types. I guess the only thoroughbred dogs we ever had were Basset hounds. But our first Basset, she was out of 2 grand champions. She was a beautiful tricolored Basset. Except she had been hurt when she was young, and she had some scars on her feet, so they couldn't show her anymore. So the people gave her away. They were interested in show dogs, and they put her up. Who wants her? And my wife's uncle heard about it and said, "You guys are looking for a dog, aren't you?" And oh my gosh! And both my wife and I felt the same way about Basset hounds. Oh, we always did. So we went over to see this Basset hound, and she was chained up in the front yard and being neglected and nobody around. She was literally on a chain in the front yard of this house, with a stake driven in the ground and the chain hooked to it. And I saw her, and she was bellowing at us as we walked up the sidewalk, and I walked over to her. She was just, to me, was beautiful, and I reached down to pet her, and she lurched forward on the chain and grabbed the toe of my shoe and pulled me right down on my can. I just fell right down on the ground, and she just pulled my feet out from under me, and she was trying to get me in a better spot to bite me. But I loved her. She was great. And she became the most terrific pet, and we had her for about 8 years, and our boys grew up, and she tolerated anything they would do to her. She was just a great dog. Dagmar.
That's a good name.
Yeah, she was named Dagmar because our first house, we didn't have carpeting. It was in Florida, and we had with the marble floors that they ground. It's called terrazzo, and but we didn't have any carpeting, so there were stone floors in the house. But it works good in Florida. But our dog would go out for her morning romp every morning, and she'd come back in, and from the dew on the grass and the mud that she got into, here's her. She'd walk across the floor, and besides her footprints, I'd see these 3 long muddy streaks across the floor, and it was from her 2 ears and her udder. So Dagmar at the time was a TV star from Sweden, I think, that had an enormous chest, and Dagmar had a tremendous udder, so she was named Dagmar. Oh, after my wife died, Melanie decided I should have a pet. So we talked about what kind of a pet, and I guess most obviously we were heading for a dog. But I said, I like those little potbelly miniature pigs that they've got. But I said, I don't know anything about them. So Melanie started looking around. She found a guy that grew them and sold them, and so bred them and raised them. And so the phone call was made, and she and I got in the car, and we went out there, and they had this litter of little piglets, and this one black, real aggressive character. I kind of liked him, so we brought him home, and he just looked like the Fonz from Laverne and Shirley show and TV, you know, and so that became his name, and we had him for quite a while. But he wanted to grow larger, and my instructions had been not to feed him very much, and so consequently he was hungry all the time, and he got real mean. So he was okay with me, but when other people come in the house, he bit them. So I found a home for Fonz out on a farm in the country, and he lived the rest of his days very happily out there, and grew. Within 2 months after I got rid of him, he went from 17 to 53 pounds. So I wasn't feeding him enough, obviously.